Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for November 23rd, 2015. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the matters pertaining to the employment history of particular individual and contractual negotiations?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to go back into public session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Good evening. Welcome to Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for November 23rd, 2015. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by Luke and Lily, and then remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces, those in our Yorktown community who have lost loved ones, especially Fran Miller, who was a former secretary to Lisa O'Shea, and Joe Pisani, who was a CTA at Yorktown High School.
I pledge an allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. We have Mohansic, one of our favorite schools today, right, Dr. Knapp?
Absolutely. And we have Mrs. Berry and Mrs. Kelsey, who are going to introduce our wonderful students. And we have many of our teachers here with us. So after you introduce our students, Mrs. Kelsey, maybe later on we can introduce the teachers also who do such great work with our
I'd love
boys
to.
and girls.
I'd love to.
Okay.
Sure. So I'm going to just say a few words first, and then I'll let the children introduce themselves to you.
Great.
So a few weeks ago, some of my kindergarten and first grade colleagues were invited right here to share our feelings about the successful implementation of full-day kindergarten last year in our schools and the impact we've seen on our first graders this year. So it was a pleasure to be here that evening to participate in that discussion, but I have to say I'm even more excited to be here tonight because I've brought with me some of our Mohansic first graders to give you first-hand insight into how full-day kindergarten prepared them for the wonderful work that they're doing this fall in first grade. Now, of course, we don't have time to share everything that they're doing, but we've picked a few things to highlight tonight. And I'm going, if you bear with me for 1 minute, I'm going to let them share with you kind of the theme of our presentation tonight.
Oh, terrific. That's a good title, Mrs. Kelsey.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, we have to introduce ourselves, Mrs. Kelsey. This is the most important part. All right, you ready?
My name is Griffin, and I'm in Mrs. Dable's class. Hi, I'm Alyssa, and I'm in Mrs. Dable's class. Hi, my name is Jill, and I'm in Mrs. Saldudi's class. Hi, my name is Ben, and I'm in Mrs. Saldudi's class. Hi, my name is Amiana, and I'm in Mrs. Hines' class. Hi, my name is Dylan, and I'm in Mrs. Hines' class. Hi, my name is Gianna, and I'm in Mrs. Kelsey's class. Hi, my name's Shane. I'm in Miss Kelsey's class. Hi, my name is Lily, and I'm in Mrs. Casano and McCartney's class. Hi, my name is Luke, and I'm in Mrs. Cusano and Mrs. McCartney's class.
Okay, here we go.
kindergarten, just beginning to learn how to read. Our teachers taught us our letters, sounds, and trick words. We heard lots of stories and began to read books on our own. That helped us get ready this fall in first grade to learn more about the features of fiction stories. Do you know what fiction stories have? We will tell you. Fiction stories have characters, a setting, a problem, and a solution. There is a beginning, middle, and end. And you have to read a fiction story in order, or it won't make sense. This October, the first graders did a special book project with our families. We chose a fiction book to read and focus on one character. We used a pumpkin and turned it into the character from our book. Then we wrote a report describing the character and explaining what he or she did in the story. I read the book I Love My New Toy. My character is Piggy.
That is awesome.
I read the book There Is a Bird on Your Head. My character is Gerald.
That is so awesome.
In kindergarten, our teachers taught us so much about writing. We had lots of time each week to write. That helps us get ready for our first big writing unit in first grade, personal narratives. Do you know what personal narratives writing is? We will tell you. It is writing that tells about your life. It can be about a place when you went, something fun that you did, or a special memory you used. A lot of I, me, and my when you write a personal narrative story. Our teachers use mentor text like this one, the hello, goodbye window, so we can notice the good features of personal narratives. I made an anchor charts to keep track of what we were learning. We learned that our stories must have a beginning, middle, and an end. We should fill our stories up with thoughts, feelings, and details so that the reader can understand our story better. Here's my story.
Do you want me to hold the mic when you read your story? You want me to hold it?
Going to Hershey, written by Benjamin, illustrated by Benjamin. I dedicate my story to family, friends. Every year I go to Hershey, but this year was special because my cousins were there. First, we drove to Hershey, We played going on a picnic. We had to name things in alphabetical order. Next, we met our cousins at a farm that had lots of fun activities. The farm is called Tricrust. And me and my cousins loved the bouncy pillow and the slide. One was not in a tube, one wasn't a tube. The one in the tube was bumpy, the other one was smooth. We went to our hotel. We got ready for bed. The next day, early in the morning, we got ready to go to Hershey. Me and my sister said, yippee, let's go to Hershey now. We got dressed and left the hotel. We even loved the ride there. When we were near Hershey, we could see and hear the roller coasters. We wanted to go on them, but we could not go on them. And then we turned into the parking lot. Next, we went into Hershey. It was really crowded. We went on a chocolate tour. It teached us how to make chocolate. Next, we got off and we went up a few flights of stairs, and we went down a few flights of stairs. Then we saw a cart filled with candy. We took one piece of candy, then we left. Then we went down a few flights of stairs. Then we started to walk around for a little bit. Then we saw our friends. Their names are Katie and Kira. Then we wanted to go on the tour, so we went on it together. We went on it over and over again. Last we could go on the rides. My favorite rides were Laugh Track, the Super Duper Looper, and the Comet. We went on lots of rides. Laugh Track was inside and glow in the dark. The Comet has lots of big drops, and the Super Duper Looper goes upside down. We went back to our hotels. The next day, it was time to go on the water rides. There were water rides that have a very big splash. One is called Tidal Force, the other one is called Cold Cracker. There was a huge water park for everyone, a splash zone for Tidal Force. The water park has a huge bucket that dumps water. There is a place where you can dry your bodies. I love it.
Pretty good, right?
Very good.
Good job, Ben. That was a great story. So now we have Gio's story. Ready, Gio?
Disney, written by Gio, illustrated by Gio. I dedicate my story to family. Not so long ago, I went to Disney. First, we went to the park. Then we went on the teacups. My mom almost threw up. Next, we went on another ride. Me and my brother were on a team against my mom and my dad. My mom and dad won. Then we went on a roller coaster. It was Space Mountain. Did you know that Space Mountain is by a lot in the whole scares in the whole entire Disney? Last, we went on Splash Mountain, and it concludes water. You go straight down. At the bottom, there is a little pool. After that, we went to the hotel. The next day, we went to Epcot, and me and my brother's friends were there. Their names are Madeline and Sheridan. Their last names are Gormans. The first ride we was test track. Then you go to make your own car. It was a really cool. It was a roller coaster. Me and my mom were against my dad and my brother. Me and my mom made a really cool car. Me and my mom won. I couldn't believe it. Then I went on Soarin'. It was really cool. You sit on a seat, then the seat goes up. Then they show a lot of pictures. They are really close. On one, they show a picture of fireworks. In my opinion, it is one of the coolest. In top 10 are my opinion. We went to one of the countries. I think it was Japan. We could see the Statue of Liberty. It was next. We went to Mexico. At Mexico, there was really funny hats. My mom let me and my brother keep them. They were twice the size of me and my brother. Then we went to dinner. I got tacos for appetizer. I got nachos. Was their best nachos in the whole entire world. After that, I got food. After that, we went back to the hotel and went in the pool. We played Marco Polo. I was it first. I got Madeline first.
Good job.
Last year in kindergarten, we learned a lot about ourselves and what makes us special and unique. We had time to do lots of important social studies, activities, and lessons that helped us get ready for our work this year in first grade. This fall, we began learning about families and how they change over time. Each of us got to pick an older family member and interview them. We asked them 3 questions about when they were children. Did you go to school, and if so, how did you get there? Did you have chores, and if so, what chores did you have? What kinds of things did you do for fun? We wrote down their answers and used the information to compare their childhood a long, long, long time ago to our childhood today. We created books that we want to read to you now.
Is that yours?
I think.
Dylan, that's yours.
Back then, schools had all the grades together. Now kids are in classes with kids the same age.
That's
Back then, some chores were dusting and washing the pots. Now some chores are putting dishes in the dishwasher. Back then, they played in the backyard and climbed trees. Now kids watch TV and play on computers and go to karate classes.
Yeah.
I learned that families long ago spent time talking and playing outside. Today, kids spend time playing electronics.
Good job, Dylan.
Back then, schools had one room. Now, schools have a lot of rooms and also have gyms and cafeterias. Back then, some chores were to collect all the eggs from the chickens. Now, I help my mom go to the supermarket for eggs.
It's true.
Back then, he played soccer for fun. Now, kids play on iPods and iPads. They also go to swim and dance class. I learned that families long ago, kids had to walk a long way to school. They also had harder chores. They also spent a lot of time outside.
Good job. Do you want to hold the mic? Hold it up to your mouth. No, don't touch it, okay? All right, Gianna.
Even though the family members we interviewed were really old and were little kids a long, long time ago, we wanted to go back even further in time. So we took a trip to Phillipsburg Manor in Sleepy Hollow, New York. We went there to learn what life was like over 250 years ago. People in really old-fashioned clothes showed us around the whole place. It looked so different from how our community in Yorktown looks today. I learned that families long ago lived very differently from how my family lives today.
Stand right over there. Okay.
The first graders got to tour Phillipsburg Manor and the Colonial Manor House. We noticed that there was a fireplace in every room. That's because there was no heat back then. We also noticed a chamber pot in the bedroom. That's because there was no bathrooms back then. We also saw the barn, where we got to thresh wheat and saw the tools they used to use. We also got to see how wool gets turned into yarn. We got to card the wool and learn that this would have been our job to do if we were little kids back in the colonial days. We also visited the mill, where a big water wheel made everything in the mill work. That's because there wasn't any electricity back then. Our class wrote a book about our trip. Here is my page. Bob showed how they got water from the mill. We went in an old house. Sarah showed us how to make butter.
Great. All right, Lily. Here we go.
Last year in kindergarten, we had a lot of time to visit the science lab. Our teachers taught us many things, and it was fun each time we went there. That helped us get ready for our first science unit of first grade, called Organizing Ourselves to Do Science Experiments. Each week, we get to work in the science lab. So far this fall, we've learned what the scientists do, How could we organize ourselves and our materials? Why do scientists ask questions? How do scientists observe?
We discovered that making observations is very important when you are a scientist. Do you know what it means to observe? It means to look closely at something. We learn to observe the attributes of things. Do you think that is a big word for first graders? Not for us. Attributes are things like size, shape, color, texture, and weight. We observed gourds, leaves, and plastic bumps. Here is our leaf observations.
So these are their leaf observations. Show them, guys.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, wonderful.
Did you want to read the leaf observation? Did you want to read it? Do you want to read it? Okay. We practiced reading it, so they'll just read it.
My properties of the leaf were, my color was brown, my size was big, my shape was oval, my weight was light, and my texture was bumpy.
My color is brown and yellow. My size was big. My shape was triangle. My texture was bumpy. My weight was light.
So we've been pretty busy. Boys and girls, how many days have we been in school? What was today? 50, right? 53 days. Can you believe it? And all this work in 53 days? And this was just a little sample of what they do. So I'm very proud of them. And definitely, I told these first graders that they are very special because they really were the first group of children to have, what did you guys have? Do you think they're on their way?
Oh, yeah.
They're on their way. So the last thing we want to do, and maybe I'll let Mrs. Berry help us. Would you give these to the children? So another thing that they've been working on lately, just the past couple of weeks with Mrs. Flynn, their music teacher, they're practicing for their show. And their show is called Flakes. And let's let Mr. Cole think about what he thinks this show could be about. What's it about, you guys? It's about snowflakes and about snow. So they have a special invitation for all of you that they'd like to give each one of you now. So go ahead, boys and girls, go give an invitation to somebody.
Thank you.
And we hope that you come to see their show.
Very much.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. So I'll let Mrs. Berry maybe say a few words and introduce the other first grade teachers that are here, if that's
wonderful.
okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Kelsey.
Good
That
job,
was
boys and
wonderful.
girls. How about another clap for them? They did a great job.
Thank you so much. It is our pleasure again to be here to present the good news and to share our curriculum. Yes, Mrs. Kelsey is correct. 53 days and so much good work has happened. And did you notice how fluent they are in reading? Already it's November, first grade, so congratulations to everyone. Mrs. Kelsey always does such a great job as well. So in addition to the children being here, thank you so much, first graders. Their parents, thank you, parents and families, for coming out this evening and supporting our school and helping to present to the Board of Education. We do appreciate your partnership and your support. Our first grade team is here as well. I'd like to take a minute to introduce our teachers that are here in addition to Mrs. Kelsey. We have Mrs. Jen McCartney and Mrs. Adrian Casano in our ICT. Mrs. Maureen Hines is here. Mrs. Sal Duty is here. And Mrs. Dable with her children, Natalie and Dean, are here as well. Did I miss anyone? Where is Mrs. Ryan? Mrs. Ryan, our reading teacher. Mrs. Zoyce, our school psychologist, sitting next to Mrs. O'Shea also. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure.
You want to say something, Zach? Thank you.
Boys and girls, great job. I think Dr. Napolitano will want to say a few words to you, so a few
We are
more
so
minutes.
impressed
Oh, and
with you
Mrs.
guys.
Mrs. Capone. Sorry, Mrs. Carbone.
The fluency in these kids is incredible. I looked at Dr. Knapp at one point and I said, are these really first graders? Their reading is unbelievable. Their writing is incredible. The length of the story. So thank you so much, teachers and staff, for all the hard work you do. Parents, thank you. We're very impressed.
Very good. And boys and girls, I can't believe all the wonderful things you're learning in first grade because you were so well prepared in kindergarten. When I was listening to all the books that you're reading and stories that you're writing, and you knew how to say personal narrative and tell your own story, and boy, would I have liked to have been on that Hershey tour. Only the chocolate. And that is for sure. And whoever was having the best, what was it that you were having the best? It wasn't tacos, it was nachos. I got my tacos and nachos mixed up, but I'm in for that too. So anytime you have extra nachos, just don't tell them. Because we have a wellness policy. I'm not supposed to eat that stuff here. But if you give it to me, I can make an exception. And I love the idea that you're doing social studies and you're learning about families and you're doing interesting comparison and contrast, how people lived long ago and how people live today. Now let me ask you, if you had your choice, would you like to stay where you are today in 2015, or would you like to go back 250, I was thinking about the nachos, and 250 years ago? So we have a little bit of, okay, so we'll have to talk about that the next time I come and visit. We'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages of living long ago and living right now in Yorktown. But I love that. And science, and I was so impressed with that wonderful word, attributes, and then you defined it. That was very, very important to me because I just thought you were saying a big word to impress me, but you knew how to define it, and that was very good. Now, do you want to hear my personal narrative? Sure. Can I do a little personal narrative for you? And it's all based on this nice invitation, snowflakes. Once upon a time, there was a superintendent of schools named Dr. Napolitano. And he likes snowflakes and snow, but only on Saturday and Sunday. He doesn't like snow during the week. He especially doesn't like getting a call from Mr. Cole at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Cole calls, and I answer always on the first ring because I want him to know. Is that true, Mr. Cole? Because I want him to know that I'm up and waiting. And then he says, "What do you think we should do?" And that starts a conversation that starts at 2 o'clock in the morning and continues all the way till 5 o'clock when I'm really getting annoyed. And then he reports to me, it's not looking good because the buses can't travel on the Yorktown roads. Do you want to close the schools? And how do you feel when school gets closed? Did you say yes? That's not the way my story ends. So now I'm going to finish my story. Dr. Napolitano says, okay, but I'm not happy. And then Mr. Cole says, do you want to try a 2-hour delay? I said, okay. Then he calls me back at 5 after 5 and says, do you want to try a 3-hour delay? And then he calls me back at 10 after 5 and says, do you think we should close? And then I have to go along with it. And unlike you, I'm very, very sad. How'd you like my personal narrative? And I was in a lot of pain, in case you don't know. But I'm going to come and see. I know that the one place I'm going to be very happy is when I come to your performance and I hear all about snowflakes. And I love, did you all make these? No, but that's, oh, Mrs. Kelsey made them. Well, Mrs. Kelsey, you did a great job. Mrs. Berry, I think that you should give the children all a turkey ribbon. Turkey ribbon, because they are just, and now, and boys and girls, before I let you go home, and parents and grandparents, thank you so very much for being here with us. We love your children. They are so smart. I think that you're ready to go to 3rd grade next year, but don't tell the 2nd grade teachers I said that. But there are 2 very important people in the audience that I want you to meet. So are you ready to meet them? All right, so you're going to turn around toward the audience because I'm going to show you who they are. So one of them is Mrs. Froats. Mrs. Froats, do you want to wave to the children so they can see who you are? So some of you recognize Mrs. Froats because she visits your school. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I wanted to introduce Mrs. Froats, because I knew she'd be paying attention to the fact that math was left out. Mrs. Froats, now, I need you to listen very carefully, boys and girls. Mrs. Froats teaches the hardest math in the district, and it's a math called calculus. Can you all say that? Calculus? Someday, when you get to the high school, in a long time from now, and you're in the 11th grade, Mrs. Froats is going to be teaching you calculus. And you remember that I told you that tonight, because you won't be eating corn chips and potato chips and what chips? Nachos. Nachos. Because Mrs. Froats teaches very, very important math. Now, Mr. Lease, I want you to meet Mr. Lease also. Mr. Lease is a statistician. Can you say that word? It's a very big word, statistician. So that means he studies numbers all day long. And you know the way you compare things? He compares numbers morning, noon, and night. He drives me crazy. So that's another very, very important math. And someday you may take statistics. And boy, oh boy, then you're going to come back and tell me how much you know in statistics and calculus, because they are wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Froats and Mr. Lease. And boys and girls, nobody is more wonderful than you. I have enjoyed myself very much tonight, and if you really like me, you can take me home. Or I can read you a story in school. How does that sound? Can I come to read, Mrs. Kelsey, can I come to read them a story? I was trying to get out of the board meeting, but I don't think they got it.
No,
I have to stay. Okay. Parents, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate you being here.
Happy
Bye, boys and
Thanksgiving
girls.
to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We have to do public comment. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak on agenda-related items? No, okay. Can I have a point of order? Can we flip-flop? I know. Can we flip-flop the superintendent's report and the education report so Mary and David can go home?
Why, yes, we can.
Florence? Yes. We always love Mary Frost. We don't want to get less of her.
Oh, wait. Did you want me to?
Is there something on the superintendent?
Yeah,
No,
it's
we were
just
going to,
international.
you want to do that? Or you want to, no, we were going to let you do your,
Okay.
Did you want to
The
do something
report?
first?
No.
Okay.
I didn't think
All
so.
right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to share our progress in mathematics education in the Yorktown District. We have some great news to share with you this evening. But first and foremost, I'd like to invite Mary Froats and David Lease to the podium. Mary has worked for 7 years now. She teaches, as you heard this evening, the hardest math course at the high school, but the rest of her day is really spent in working with our teachers at the elementary school, kindergarten through grade 5, so that we align and sequence time and we talk about our curriculum and implement our curriculum. So Mary is here and she'll be sharing some of the work she's been involved in. And then David is here. We're going to be sharing some student data with you, student data that ranges from grades 3 through high school, through the Regents at the high school. So if we can move to the next slide. All of our work, we called it work in all of our contents areas, the CIA. We work first and foremost on our curriculum, making sure that it's recorded, that it exists, and it's consistently reviewed, not just shelved, as we used to do many years ago. We focus on instruction, on how that curriculum is delivered and how students are interacting with the curriculum, and finally on assessments. And assessment includes both local and state assessments. I'm now going to invite Mary. As we were preparing for this presentation this evening, we decided to develop our own formula for mathematics work in the district. So Mary, I would ask you to begin and welcome by sharing the formula that we use.
Sure. Obviously, the Common Core is the big talk around the world, but at least in our country. And when we had implemented investigations as our major resource 7 years ago, we didn't have to do the Common Core learning standards at that moment, but we needed to implement them in, and investigations was a great transition for us because it went back to the thinking and understanding and developing different concepts and trying to get the kids to think instead of just memorize an algorithm. We did have some, I don't say gaps, but there was some pieces that we know that we wanted to improve on investigations while implementing the Common Core. So we use some of the resources from Engage New York. We have a, consumables in grades 3, 4, and 5, also that helps. So during the summer, we've been working on curriculum, thanks to you. We've been given time to go in and rework and tweak and continually help our teachers do a better job of presenting the material and having the kids really try to understand and be able to think with a question that they've never seen before, not the old-fashioned, just do this, just do this. What do you do if you see a question you've never seen before?
And I would just add, our focus was to increase our students' ability to be problem solvers mathematically, and also to make sure that our earliest learners had number sense or understood what those numbers really meant. So meaning in math has been our biggest focus. And now, David, are you going to share data? We'd like you to go through that with us, grades 3 through Regents level at the high school.
Thank you. So one of the things that happens when Florence comes together and brings Mary and I to the table and we all sit and discuss and look at the curriculum and look at student work is a big part of this is the data. So what I wanted to do is go through some of the slides here. And what you have in front of you, you're looking at 3 through 8 math results and the percent of students passing across the spectrum. If you look at the chart on the left-hand side, you have your percent of students that pass along with the line graph on where they land. What I'd like you to take away with this is you're looking at 2013 and 14. 2013 marked the benchmark year and introduction of the Common Core assessments and change from the old format. So that was our first benchmark year of data for looking at how are our students performing. What I did is compare that with the 2014, and just in the 1 year from all of the work that goes on in the district level and down in the buildings, you can see that we're already showing growth. With just between the 2 years, we have as much in third grade as a 19% increase in growth. And then even in a larger picture, when we look at this data over that of all of New York State and other schools, we're performing at about a 22% greater average on our tests 3 through 8. If you go to the next slide, please. What I do is add now, we have 2015. So just in a very short amount of time, just 2 years of developing and integrating the curriculum, you can see a significant growth between 2013, our benchmark, and 2015. You may notice a little bit of an anomaly in grade 5 where there is a slight dip. Actually, Mary, I think you're going to speak to that for a second.
Yes. I happened to bring the released questions, and if you can see these released questions, you will be, oh my God, these poor children that had to sit for these tests.
Use your mic there, Mary. Yeah, thanks.
So there's a real solid reason why these kids performed not as high as we had hoped. But still, considering the level of difficulty of these questions, I think they did a fine job. We did get together in September after the release questions came out, and with the teachers, we went over which questions that I felt that our students should have done better, and we brainstormed ways that we could possibly make sure that we're coming back to those concepts on the questions that they didn't do as well as our region. We also have now implemented decimals at the beginning of the year so that it's something they'll do all year long instead of maybe towards like February. We used to just work with the whole numbers first. And also now we are putting in metric conversion in actually right now so that they will be more familiar with the metric conversion all year. So it's not just something we do in isolation. So we're working at it. The fraction questions are at a very high level. So it's not that, oh, can you get a common denominator and add them? They're asking, for example, don't mind if I read this. The fifth grade classes at Brookfield School used 5 identical buses to go on a field trip. There were a total of 40 seats on each bus. All of the seats on 4 buses were filled. The 5th bus had 4/5 of the seats filled. 1/8 of all the passengers on the buses were adults. How many adults went on the field trip with the 5th grade classes? Can you imagine trying to do that? Look, I'll pass it around. Look at my solution, how long it took me to solve that. And then when students see those types of questions, they start to get frustrated and nervous and anxious. So that's like an 8th or 9th grade level thinking, in my opinion. So hopefully that type of question, as they see how the state does, they will realize that that's above and beyond the cognitive level of a 5th grade student. I have no problem with working with fractions and getting common denominators, but to give it to them at that level, at a real life, real world level, that it takes a good 5-10 minutes to sit down and think through that problem.
And I think the important thing to note also, this isn't just unique to Yorktown, that when you look at all of New York State, the entire state experiences, and still we're at least 5% above in performance at the grade level across New York State.
But we will get better. You know, that's the good thing about us. We see where we need to improve, and then we continue to work, and the teachers are all on board with it. You know, we just, again, need the students and the parents with us, and the 3 parts together can make us more successful.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand, is it just the 5th grade that's an anomaly in terms of, you know, how difficult the questions are, or
The 5th
what
grade
happened there?
has the most conceptual problems. The 4th grade test is pretty fair, in my opinion, but the 5th grade test is way too challenging.
And then 6th grade is okay.
6th grade gets better, but now again, the kids mature, and the topics on there are a little more, I don't want to say mechanical, but a little more doable. But the questions that they're asking about scale drawings and things like that, our students don't have that exposure at 5th grade to be able to understand how to do a scale drawing. And the numbers that they use are very awkward. They're not like, oh, can you take a half of a fourth? That's understandable, and that's how we go. We develop it conceptually. What would a half of a fourth be? And we actually have them do it. We have them show the models. But when they start saying, what's 3/27ths of 1 1/3? You know, like it's unfair, in my opinion. So we will continue to build that number sense. We do know we can improve, especially with the conversions and the decimals, so that they're more fluent with it. But I don't know, you know, some of those questions are just...
Well, I would just sum up by saying it was an unusually difficult assessment at grade 5 last year as we
Yes.
looked at that. So, and it does show, the results show like that across New York State.
But can I just ask a question? Because we're focusing on student data compared to tests that we know aren't necessarily fair, cut points are different. How do our students perform overall without taking state scores in account? Because I think that's a more fair question. Because state tests to me at this point, the assessments are
So
not
with
accurate.
our level, the tests that we make, I don't have the exact
Our local
numbers here.
assessment, we're really
You know, I would just speak to, that was one of the reasons why we adopted a growth measure in the district, and we're implementing it. We're in our 2nd year of implementation, and it's just for the very reason of charting student growth. So we have some data that's reliable over time. And I would add that in our local data, we have 100% participation, where in 2015, we were really missing 30% of our students. So you have to read this and take this with a grain of salt, but I did want to share it with you. Thank you. Can we go to the next?
Certainly, and I guess really the big takeaway from this slide is that between the benchmark year and our current previous year, that we are continuing to make growth in implementing the Common Core curriculum and in our performance on the state assessment. And then the next slide, please, is just to put it in perspective. If we look at our results in relation to the rest of New York State, we were performing well above the average of all the other New York State schools.
Wow.
Now we'd like to move into sharing Regents results with you, and it's over 2 years. So if you would, David, please.
Sure. So now looking at the Regents results, we're looking at two different things. The first chart you're looking at is set up very similarly, where on the left-hand side you have your percent passing. Again, we're looking at the percent of students passing the Regents exam, but two things are happening here. You have 2014, where you were given the 2005 Regents format exam, and in integrated algebra, the Common Core. What I want you to take away from this is, even though we were taking the Common Core state assessment, that if you compare it to the old 2005 format, our performance level is staying the same with the new state assessments. That we've maintained our performance level and in the integration of the curriculum, being able to still come out with the student performance of our students at the same level passing with the new state format.
And I would just add, I'm sorry, Dave.
Go ahead, that's okay.
I would just add that, Mary, if you could talk about some of the work now that the teachers have been engaged in regarding integrated algebra, that would be a good example.
Yeah, the exam this past June in 9th grade reminded me a lot of the old Algebra 2 exam. That's how hard it was. And kudos to Melissa Faraguzzi, Morgan Donahue, and Rosemary Jost, who worked so hard on that curriculum the entire year. They kept tweaking it, and we had incredible results for that Algebra 1 Common Core exam, and it was not an easy exam.
And finally, the last slide that I'll have for you tonight, and I always just like to put this in perspective, and one of the things that I think that we should be really proud of and take away from this is when we look at our performance over all of New York State, and then we could see that in our integrated algebra, we're at least 15% above the New York State average and 25% over the New York State average in geometry on these state exams.
And geometry as well, that they worked on the curriculum. They all work together. So it's Jeff Serrar, John Bronzy, Steve Labor, Jim Barry, and Melissa Faraguzzi as well on that. So we had a lot of great teamwork.
If you would go to the last slide, which is the map. Thank you, Yvette. This is very interesting data, and I would ask us, I hope that you can see it, and if you have it on a laptop, it's even more clear. These are the results for the 2015 Common Core Algebra 1 in comparison to other schools in Westchester County. And Yorktown Central School District had 25% of its students at level 5. The Regents are now scored on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1/4 of our students fell within the top band, and we're very proud of that. And I'm not sure that everyone can see this, but out of 38 school districts in Westchester County, the Yorktown students placed 10th. Yorktown District placed 10th, which are nice results. And similarly, if we compare our Yorktown results to the New York State ranking, out of 659 districts, Yorktown ranked 21st in the related to the Common Core Integrated Algebra 1 region. So we're very proud of these results, and the work in math, we believe that we keep plugging away, and we've been so focused on it for really 7 years now. We're seeing some great results, and more importantly, when we visit classrooms, we see students talking about math, and they're thinking mathematically, they're analyzing, they're looking at different ways to solve problems. So quantitatively, this is fine. Qualitatively, we see some fabulous math happening in our rooms. So I thank you very much for bearing with us on this brief journey. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to address them.
We're looking for AP results?
Oh yeah, just one more slide.
I forgot about AP. Mary.
Don't worry,
I'm trying to cut
AP
AP short. I apologize, Mary. Please go on.
Well, when we were thinking about numbers, and I know the scores always come in the summer, so sometimes it's not as exciting then, but we're always dying to know, and I just wanted to kind of show off how great our calculus, physics, and statistics scores are among all the other APs, but of course just representing the ones that are in our department or that we're team working, I'm working with Ralph Mazzio on the physics. And if you look to see, like, I have to put my glasses on, 28% of the students in 2013 were in some sort of calculus, which is amazing. It's, normally top 10%. We had 28%. In 2014, we had 36%. And this year, we have 27% of the senior class are enrolled in some sort of calculus. So we're really proud of that, and our results are really good on the APs. 3 is considered success, but for most of the competitive schools, you need a 4 or 5. And if you just look at our numbers, we end up with 90% or 89%, 100% of the BC, the physics 86%, and the statistics 72%. So each year, if you look at those numbers, we don't have this year's, but just so you knew how many kids were enrolled this year, we have a really strong showing. And our kids go to school, and as a matter of fact, Jacob Shapiro came back, I don't know if you know Jacob, and spoke to my classes today, and he was so touching as a teacher. Yeah, he told them, he's very kind of quiet, he says, you know, you're not going to get teachers like Mrs. Froats. You know, they don't care if you come or if you know. So take your notes, you know, make sure you do the problem sets. It was really, you know, I couldn't have paid them enough money to do it. So that's the best that I could ever hope for, is that they realize and appreciate the great education they're getting here at Yorktown.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, David. And now I will thank you generally, and if we have questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
You guys got any questions, anybody?
No, you answered the questions that I had.
Okay,
Thanks.
great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very
This
much.
was wonderful. Thank you
But
so
just
much.
before you go, I do want to make a statement, not so much a question. I did want to say that one of the smartest things that was done 7 years ago was to put
Absolutely.
Mary into the elementary schools. I think one of the goals that we didn't identify, although you addressed it now kind of indirectly, one of the goals was to get students to think more positively about math and to enroll in high school in stronger math courses, because we were seeing that those numbers weren't meeting our expectation, that there were fewer students who were taking the challenging math courses. And 2 things that you said without really saying that, 2 things that you did say, is that our numbers have grown. 36% of the kids are taking calculus, 27%, 28%, and perhaps more importantly, not only is the fact that the number is growing, generally when numbers grow in AP courses, grades go down. The fact that the numbers are growing and the grades are staying consistently high is really a credit to you, Mary, and I say that, and I mean it very sincerely. I think when you went down to the elementary schools and you showed your colleagues down there, and I'm sure that there were skeptics in the audience at the time, if you think back 7 years ago, that math could be taught in a more dynamic way with less computation, not that we would ever ignore the importance and value of computation, but with more focus on concepts. And as Florence is saying, I've witnessed what she's suggesting, that when you go into the elementary classroom, the kids really get it. I had the most interesting experience with a first grade class where the teacher was trying to master a game. It was unfortunate that I walked in at that time because she was still trying to work out
The kinks?
Yes, exactly. So it was on the smart board, and basically what they were doing was, she had a number in a box at the bottom. The number was 18. And across the top, there were all kinds of boxes with 6 marbles, 4 ducks, 7 pens, whatever the case is. So the student took his 8, he said if I took 8, he wanted to solve how he would get 18. If I take the 8 marbles and I take 12, so he made a mistake. He clearly went too high. He saw a box of 12 and he put the 20, and the box kind of blows up on the screen because you don't have it, and that's what you couldn't fix. How do you fix that to go back to 18 again? So I asked the students what happened, and they said, well, he just went over by 2. So I said, well, what did he need to do? What box would you have picked? I said, somebody picked the right box, and one of the students did exactly what I said, 10, 10 and 8 would be 18. But one of the other students said, he didn't have to take the one with 10. He could have taken 5 and 5 and added to the 8 and still come up with the same. And then all of a sudden, or they could have done 4 and 6 and 8. So I thought it was, these were first graders, by the way, if I didn't preface it by saying they were first graders, the fact that they were able to look at that and realize that there's not one way of coming up with the solution. There were multiple ways. And when I see the 3rd graders talking about associative properties and distributive properties, and I think I learned that in the 9th grade, honestly, in algebra, and I thought, gee, isn't that something? You could just do whatever you want and get this. But they really understand it, they get it, they know how to move the numbers, they know how to put in the right It's just incredible. They talk math, and that is something that 7 years ago, I think that was your goal, if I'm not mistaken.
It was absolutely to help the teachers see the benefit of it and for the students to love learning math. And I marvel when I go in at how they can think, and it's such a wonderful thing to see.
So if the outcome 7 years later is that more students are enrolling in the harder math courses in high school, and they're still doing as well as when you didn't have those numbers enrolling, that to me is the answer. The fifth grade nonsense is just plain insanity. When you want somebody to look bad, you ask that kind of a question, and you get the answer. You know, no matter how good a teacher is, they're not going to be able to solve that.
Right.
So this is the real evidence for me.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And to Ralph Mazzio and Steve Lieber, because they're the other
Yes,
AP
I agree.
teachers.
And David, also, please, while you're there, so that I don't forget, because sometimes you make one point and you forget the other. The fact that you make all this very difficult data, and it really is difficult, the fact that you make all of the data very easy for us to look at and understand, and not only look at and understand, but help us to use it to inform our practice, because to me that's the most important thing. It's one thing to look at data and say, okay, so they did well here, they didn't do so well here. It's another thing to look at it and say, how do we make this better because we know this, and what is it that we need to emphasize, and what is it that we can feel very comfortable with that maybe we don't need to spend the same amount of time. So statistics and data are very, very significant and very important, particularly for how they inform the practice of what our teachers do in the classroom. So I don't want to miss that very important point.
Thank you, and it's certainly important to me. I have a great passion for it, and I know it sounds like a lot of data geek stuff, but honestly, at the end of the day, there's a lot that happens, and when you sit in these grade level meetings and you work with teachers and you bring this data to the table and the conversations that come out of it, and you realize how important it is, it really makes it all worthwhile. I was sharing before with Dr. Napolitano that my poor son called me just before the board meeting, and he had a problem with his homework, and I told him, no problem, well, he didn't know where to start. I said, well, we can do an item analysis of what you have, and then we'll figure out where you need to begin.
You poor kid.
So my poor son, he thought he was going to get his dad to give him a little sympathy. He wanted to sit down and break down the data of his assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Mary and David, thank you.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Good
you all
day.
very much. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you. Ralph, we're going to get back to the superintendent
Yes,
report. Sorry
absolutely.
for
No,
hijacking it.
that's okay. Mine is like 1 minute, so please.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, you wanted me to do it? I thought you were
Yeah,
going
no.
on. Oh,
No,
so-
we're letting you do it.
Forgive me, everybody. I misunderstood that I was going right at this moment. Mine is just a quick report, actually. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the International Night here at Mildred E. Strang Middle School. As a matter of fact, right here in the cafeteria. And the cafeteria looked strangely different because it was really decorated beautifully with all the flags of the world, and every table represented a country. And there was international cuisine and international desserts. But more importantly, there were students who were remembering in a very beautiful way their culture, and they were presenting it through song, through dance, through instrumental, instrumental, what word am I looking for? Good. Instrumental interpretation of their culture. And it was simply a wonderful night. And I thought the reason why I bring it to your attention, ordinarily I wouldn't make a fuss over something that's one of many things that go on at Yorktown schools that I'm proud of. But I think in today's day and age, when we're focused on so many things that don't sound peaceful and don't sound caring and don't sound thoughtful, it was beautiful that these children would take the time and the interest to present the world in the way the world should be presented, in a beautiful way, in a way that we all understand it, through the universal language of music and dance and food and conversation. The evening started probably at around 7 and only lasted till about 9:30, but I would tell you that it was one event after the other that was nicer and nicer and nicer. And I think that everybody that was here, and maybe 200 people at most, must have left here thinking, if I had a dream for what the world should look like for my children, this is the dream that I would give them. And I only wish that whenever the news makes the production of what they make the production of, and repeats it over and over and over and over again until it's maddening, that they would have an opportunity to just step foot into a school and see that when children take over and they masterfully create something beautiful, how much wonder and joy there is in that opportunity. So although my report is nothing fancy, it was something that, it was a moment in time for me that was very much needed and very beautiful. And I'm glad it's videoed. I'm sure that they'll put it up on the website at some point or another. But it was really a remarkable moment, and a moment of great peace and beautiful entertainment and good food. It was a nice night. I enjoyed myself.
Awesome. Did you have one other one, the foundation?
What else did I want
The
to do?
foundation?
Oh, yeah. The Foundation for Excellence did something very interesting, and I'm going to defer because actually I didn't attend because I don't have an autistic bone in my body. But they did an evening of painting, and they did get my secretary, Joanne Odawati, and their Reshmi Bose, and oh, look at that, there it is.
Oh, look at
and
that.
Dr. O'Connor, and who else is in that? Gina Petrozzulo, and I think Deirdre Amerling was there, and you can see what a wonderful, did you put that picture up there, Yvette? Oh, Dr. O'Connor gave it to you. So it's wonderful. I think I tweeted that picture everywhere in the United States. So Dr. O'Connor, take over what exactly happens on this night.
This was a wonderful evening. The Foundation for Excellence had a fundraiser, and I would think there were about 60 people there. It was held at the Piatto Grill, and the large room was filled with round tables and easels, and there was an art instructor, and the instructor gave us explicit directions, and we each interpreted it in a different way. And these amazing masterpieces, some of them are hanging in the offices, in the central office. I don't think we're going to have a showing, but they are there. And I just wanted, Mrs. Bose is here this evening. What a wonderful event. So thank you so much. And I think it was a very successful event. It looked like it. So.
What was the picture? You can't tell.
Oh, it's too
You know,
bad.
it's hard because
We should bring it
it's
next
the Bear
time.
Mountain. It is not pizza. It is the Bear Mountain Bridge, and the in the fall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
And it's actually
it's
gorgeous.
interpretive.
It's actually gorgeous. We're going to make Dr. O'Connor bring it next time. The reason Reshmi is important, and forgive me for neglecting to mention, she's important because she has 2 children who attend our schools. But beyond that, she's also been the PTA president and more recently the Foundation for Excellence president. And we thank her very much for that. And this was a sellout event. So, which was really wonderful. And the artwork, if you can't pick it up in there, it really is spectacular. Joanne has hers in the office, and Florence has hers in the office. And as the next fundraiser, we're going to sell them and raise money. You can hang your own original Florence O'Connor.
We were joking that we would put them in the elementary art show, but I don't know about that. It was a good attempt.
We can have Mr. Cole do his interpretation of snow. That would make us some money. But Florence, just a quick question. Who was the one that surprised you with the most artistic, excusing yourself, of course, with the most artistic ability?
I think Reshmi Bose had an amazing
Hey.
painting. If you could see hers in person, you would say, "Wow, what a bridge!" It was great.
Just interdisciplinary sometimes works because Reshmi is a numbers person. So, and this wasn't paint by numbers. This was paint by imagination.
That's awesome.
Mike, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Did I
Sounds
cut
like
you
fun.
off? Did I cut Mike off? No.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Terrific. Thank you, Reshmi. All right. We are going to go up now. We have an open board seat, as we can see. We've lost Pete, and we have had.
Don't say we lost Pete.
We lost Pete. We did. I know Pete too. And we've had 2 people who came forward who would wish to be board members. So what we've asked them both to come tonight, it is Cheryl Reynolds and Andrew Pecunier. And what we are asking them, I hope I said your name right. We're going to ask each of them to come up to the podium and just tell us a little bit about yourself and such. And then we've got 2 questions we want to direct to both of you. So,
If I could,
go
maybe-
right ahead.
Could you just explain what we've already asked of them to the public?
Okay, so they already filled out an application and they sent in their resumes. Okay, so we've had some background knowledge.
Right, and there were questions on the original application, so we've gotten
Correct,
a
yes.
fair amount of information already.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So should we do ladies first?
Would you like me to just start a little bit about myself? Yes, please. Okay. All right. I'm Cheryl Reynolds, and I have 3 children. My daughter's in high school in 11th grade. I have one son at the middle school in 7th grade, and another son at Crampon in 5th grade. And I'll start a little bit about my volunteer experience within the schools and in the community, and then talk a little bit about my other background, since I have taken a long leave of absence from the workforce. Over the past, I guess, actually since my daughter really started at Mohansick, I've been pretty involved with the PTA. I started at Mohansick as vice president of the PTA, and then I sort of followed her in her class, essentially. We went to Crampon together, and I was president of the PTA for a couple of years there, I believe 2 years. Or she went to middle school, and I followed her again there. And I was president of the PTA and president-elect for actually all 3 years, because there were no candidates who came up who were interested in the position. So I was able to stay on for all 3 years. I repeated that pattern actually at the high school right now. I was president-elect, and now I'm president. And again, no one stepped up, so I'm there for my second year as president. So I've been very involved with her class, and I've also been involved with my other 2 children as far as class parent and other, PTA responsibilities in their schools as well. Within the community, I've been involved there as well, and I'm currently a coach for Yorktown Youth Soccer Club and a coach for basketball for Yorktown Athletic Club. So I enjoy all of my time within the schools, and I also sometimes like to do things outside of the schools, just because you get a different perspective and you see the kids in a different light. So I think that adds a lot to, sort of what's going on in the community and what you're hearing and what pertains to school, and getting a better feel for community and my involvement there. As far as work history and my educational background, I have not worked in 16 years. I've been pretty busy in those 16 years and have enjoyed every minute of it. Truly, my volunteer work within the schools has been my favorite job, and if I could ever pick it, that would be the one thing I would always go back to. So I have enjoyed all of those years so much. Prior to that, I worked in management at a major insurance company, and as an engineer for about a year for a utility company and one of the first internet services company. My background is in electrical engineering, and I also hold an MBA in marketing and management. And I think that brings me back pretty far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to ask Andrew the same thing, and then we'll bring you back up for questions,
Absolutely.
okay? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Andrew Pecunia. This is my second interview tonight. Earlier tonight, I interviewed for assistant principal position in New York City. I'm currently a New York City teacher. I have 2 children that attend the Yorktown schools. The reason why I wanted to put myself up for the board seat is I come with a wealth of experience. As I listened to all of you guys talk tonight, I understood everything you were saying. I have educational master's degree from Columbia University, where I got my principal license. I have been teaching for the last 10 years. So I understand intimately Mosels. I understand what kids go through as we try to move the agenda forward. And I, too, coach 2 soccer teams. I'm part of the community as far as that goes. I grew up I graduated from Somers High School, but I did attend Brookside before my parents moved from Evergreen Street. So I am a long-term Westchester resident. I left for a little while and went to Seattle. I also have some internet programming experience. I understand technology really well. I also provide professional development at my school, so I have a real understanding of what that is. So I wanted to present myself just to be of service to the community and be of service to the town of Yorktown and the Yorktown School District. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, while you're standing there, we'll give you the first question. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. What do you perceive is your role as a trustee, or would be your role as a trustee on the Board of Education?
I think the role of a trustee is to listen to the community at large. I think my first action would be to sit back and learn from the people that are currently serving on the board, to look at what the issues you have been dealing with. I have watched some of the live board meetings, and I do spend some time at that. I also spend a lot of time with my son doing homework. I can tell you that as far as my role goes, it would be to be supportive. It would be also to leverage my experience in education to provide any assistance I can and in understanding. I've also taken 3 graduate level statistics courses, so I was pretty interested in looking at the information that came down. I do understand the comparison of math. I was impressed by the scores, especially the algebra scores for the Common Core. I think my role would be to act as a source of information and a source of ideas.
Okay. Thank you. Cheryl, can you answer the same question? Thank you.
I guess I look at the role as a whole, and I know that the board is responsible for a lot of the policy setting, the budget analysis, program implementation, and follow-up assessment. So in general, I know the role. I've been here for a while, and I've been to a lot of board meetings. Specifically, my role, I think one of the biggest things I could contribute is really knowing what's intrinsic to the Yorktown school system. Just being a part of the PTA and being a part of this community, I know what's important. I know where we've come. I know some of the challenges we faced. We've been through a lot of changes, so many positive changes, and I really like the way things work and the direction where we're headed. I like the relationships that exist. I think that people work well together, and I've been involved so much with the PTA and at district meetings, and I've been involved with administration. I've been involved with teachers, and I always walk out with a positive, and I think that's so important that as we move forward, that our decisions are made. Maybe we don't always agree, but the process that we use to get there is respectable, and the decision in the long run, we're always looking at the child is really in the center of it all. So I think I do have a good perspective of the district as a whole, and I think that's what I could offer.
Terrific. Now, I'll give you the last question. We're going to do one more
Sure.
question. Okay. So can you tell us about a time that you didn't agree with a decision or ruling and how you handled it?
Sure. Do you want it
Wait, Mike, can you want to Mike is going to
Yeah,
read
that could be either in work or in an organization that you were a part of, or even just, in your family environment, a time where maybe you didn't necessarily agree with a decision or a ruling and how you dealt with it.
I'll talk, I'll talk a little bit in a general sense, and I guess just being in some of the roles I've been in, I've had to deal with conflict in situations, whether it's sports or within the school. Again, I really always try to stick to the facts. There are constantly situations, on soccer fields or in the gyms or whatever, where we have situations where, as a coach, you have to handle things or handle parents, or it could be the smallest thing. Someone's at a field and they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. So I think it's all in how you approach people, sticking to the facts, and just being, respectful to people. Whether it's a small issue or a larger issue. Even within the PTA, sometimes we have things come up that we have to address. And again, I really try to keep feelings out of it, keep it very factual. And usually what I find is that we can move on. And I think a lot of it has to do with people really knowing me and me knowing the community. So I think it makes it a lot easier that when I have to approach a situation or a conflict type situation, if you have that type of relationship built up in the past, I think it helps as you move forward. So I've worked hard at that, and I've been around for a while and been very, involved. So I think people know that, that's, I'm not looking for a fight when I go out, that I'm usually trying to look for an amicable solution that works for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Could you repeat the question? Just one more time?
Michael repeated because he
Sorry.
interpreted it for me.
Okay, so can you tell us specifically about a time where you didn't necessarily agree with a decision or a ruling and how you dealt with it?
It happens all the time. I teach 253 kids a week. I teach the entire 11th and 12th grade in my school. I also work on the professional development committee as well as lead on the comprehensive education plan. So whether I'm dealing with that or I'm dealing with another committee, difficult conversations happen all the time. And I found that it's the relationships that you build with those people informally before the event, and I'm rarely surprised if I've come down on the wrong side of something. But I'm accepting of the fact that if I work with an excellent team, that the combined might of mind of the team is better than my sole mind by itself. So I guess what I would say is that I'm okay with having disagreements with people, and I try to keep those disagreements as professional as possible. And it's okay to have your opinion not be the one that's picked sometimes.
Okay. Terrific. Does anybody have anything? We're trying to keep it short. Does anybody have anything they want to ask?
I just have one quick question, and it's for you. Do you prefer Drew or Andrew? Because I saw both in the...
Oh, Drew is fine.
Hi,
I mean,
Drew.
it's just because my dad was Andrew, and I was Andrew, and it got a little crazy around the house. So my son is now Andrew. He's in 5th grade.
I have that in all Michaels in my house. So.
Right.
Exactly. I guess I'm just wondering about your availability, being a teacher in the city. What type of availability are you going to have to be able, obviously we have our meetings and stuff like that, but does that prohibit you from being available during the day or committees and things like that?
It does prohibit me from being here during the day.
Okay.
I have a full-time job.
Right.
But it does not prevent me from being available. I have one of these, as everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And I have time during the day, and I would make myself available. My mom once told me that if you want something done, ask a busy person. I am the Cub Master of PAC 165 in Yorktown. Mm-hmm. I serve on many committees at the school. I do a lot of volunteer work, so adding one more thing is not a problem for me.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. We asked Margot this week. You can do it. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of, what was I supposed to say with that? Session for the purposes of appointment of a particular individual. Okay. So, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Guys, we'll be back in a few minutes. Can I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Sorry, I always jump the gun. So first, I want to thank both of you for putting your names in, and we do really appreciate the time and the interest. Volunteer service is difficult at its best and time-consuming, and we all know we've all been doing this for many years, so the fact that we have people who are willing to come forward, we're very much appreciative of it. I think in the interest of timing, we've decided that we're going to appoint tonight. And so we discussed it, and both, we want to thank you both, but I think what the board has decided is that we would like to appoint Cheryl Reynolds to the position. Andrew, we really do thank you for your time. We think you would have been a great board member, but we just felt that Cheryl would have been a fit for so going forward. So if you don't mind, Cheryl, we could swear you in right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for
Thank you
putting
so
your
much.
name in.
Yeah. Yeah, come forward. Come see Yvette, our
And
district
also,
clerk.
Andrew, it would be great to maybe work on some committees with you this year so we could get to know each other a little bit. So that would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, please. Okay. Hi. Nice to meet you. Okay, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the
duties of the office of trustee.
Of the trustee for the Board of Education for the Yorktown Central School District according to the best of my ability. I need reading.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Shake your hands. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh,
no
sorry.
backseat.
Thank you. Thank you. You can sit next to Tom. He's gonna hold you the right time. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's it,
Right?
Yeah, no.
I need reading glasses. I couldn't read the swearing in.
Tom will help you with that. Yes, I have my cheaters.
So I'm up here.
Right
Yes,
that's great.
We will get you all set up with everything, but in the meantime, you can just share with Tom. Tom, can you move your microphone over because she gets to vote? You don't have to vote if you don't want to tonight. We get it. So we're just going to go right into our, what are we up to? Personnel. So we have, we ready? I'm not ready. Okay. We have the ratification of the Clerical Association Chapter of the Yorktown Congress of Teachers Unit Memorandum of Agreement. I'm just going to read the first paragraph. Whereas the negotiating teams for the Yorktown Central School District and the Clerical Association Chapter of Yorktown Congress of Teachers Unit executed a memorandum of agreement dated November 2nd, 2015 for a 4-year successor collectively negotiated agreement to the one that expired on June 30th, 2015, and all of the rest of
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Wonderful.
We have an MOA for the certified teaching assistant, whereas the negotiating teams of the Yorktown Central School District and the certified teaching assistants and the Teachers Aid Association chapter for the Yorktown Congress of Teachers Unit executed a memorandum of agreement dated November 4th, 2015 for a 4-year successor collectively negotiated agreement to the one that expired on June 30th, 2015, and the rest.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Guys, thank you very much for all of this. We are getting through with all of these contracts that keep coming up, so thank you, we appreciate it. We have personnel. Okay, upon recommendation of the superintendent, the following be approved. We have certified personnels, we have regular substitute appointments, we have a rescission, we have other compensation, coaches, co-curricular, a leave of absence, resignation for the purpose of retirement, we have certified personnel
So
and
moved.
substitutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have board reports. Audit committee, we're going to let Tom go first.
Okay.
Audit committee.
So, Audit Committee, as you know, we have an ongoing internal audit focused on the IT area. Tobin Associates is running that internal audit for us. We now have an interim report available, and I've just scheduled an Audit Committee meeting for December 3rd. Hopefully, Christine, you got that message and you'll be there. Good. So, at that meeting, the Audit Committee will review the report from the IT area, and then we'll share it with the board at that point. So,
Terrific.
that's the next step there.
So we should get the report sometime in December,
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Fiscal advisory, Mike.
We have a meeting coming up on the 10th of December with NICERS.
Oh, that's right, that Thursday meeting.
Yeah, Thursday morning. I'll send out a reminder after the holiday.
Okay. All right, that's it? Okay. Policy, Karen?
We are moving forward in as much as we are now in the 2000 series are being passed out to everyone. I just really want to give a shout out to Yvette, our district clerk, who's really been putting a lot of time and effort into policy and a system that works. So, that we really do get them all evaluated within 3 years. They get updated. She's coming up with some great systems, and I really appreciate your interest, your nudging, and your persistence in working with you. So thank you for that. So yes, there'll be another batch coming shortly.
Thanks. And steering, we had a meeting a few weeks ago. We have another one this coming Tuesday. We got word, Mr. Cole definitely got confirmation that we are okay, even with state ed being late in their reviews, because the bonding, the tenure has to do with, tell me if I'm explaining it wrong, tenure has to do with borrowing. We are fully borrowed on it, so if we extend past the 10-year time frame, we are okay. So that was good news. The state ed supposedly has hired an additional engineer. We don't know if we're going to get any further. The time keeps getting further. We are now at 44 weeks.
So they hired another person, and yet the time keeps extending? It didn't decrease it? Like with a new person, they didn't move it up 3 weeks each?
No.
Did he take any cases? Did he take any
We went
any
from
jobs?
36 weeks to 42 weeks to 44 weeks.
So if they hire another guy, we'll be at 50?
Apparently.
Okay.
But we are, ours right now is costing out the job. You're going to come up with each individual jobs. As you know, we can't run over. So we're going to get a laundry list of what it is, and then we're going to put it in priority. So when we go out to bid, we know if we have to cut anything and other options, because we have other options for some of these projects, meaning we could do them in capital projects within the budget. So we have to have a meeting once it's all costed out. We also worked with Marie Horowitz to discuss the awning here, and I guess that was it.
Can I ask a question, Jackie?
Sure.
Because I've not been to the steering meeting, so I'm actually, like everyone else, being informed by you, so thank you for that. So if in fact it gets pushed out and we miss our window for work, is that anything that has been talked about, doing any of the work during the year?
Well, we would do, there's some of the work we would probably still do over the summer. We would probably do the electrical line to the field, because there's some stuff, the tennis courts could get done over the summer. The other work would be very difficult to do during the year, because really, maybe you could do the front entrance, but even
That's
that,
tough.
you're going to disrupt it. You can't do the awnings because there's no alternate entrance into the school. So we would really have to push it out. We would still discuss it. It's all open for discussion, right, Tom? But understanding what we can do, it could be pretty difficult, right? I mean, the nurse's office would be difficult.
Right.
So
Unless everybody promises not to get sick
it's
that month of
compound that they
construction,
all
never
get
mind.
sick in there. No.
That's when they go on a regular basis every day.
There's a test, I go to the nurse. But anyway, so that's where we stand with steering.
Thank you.
Okay? So we're up to board action items. We have policy adoption. So we have a motion to approve the second reading of the adopted, and adopt the following Yorktown board policies. Can I have a motion and just, we'll do it?
So moved.
Second discussion?
Go ahead.
Can I just point out, I just want to say that we're just changing the name of a policy to be consistent with NYSBA's recommendation. So it was formerly called the annual district meeting, and now it's going to be called the annual district election and budget vote. And there's some minimal text that was, that was changed.
They changed it? Okay.
It was just added that, you can't. It's in the thing that you could see, but there's
these are
nothing
all
substantive.
Reviews and...
They're all done. That was the only one changing the name.
Perfect.
Just so if somebody didn't really want to go and look for the annual district meeting, and now we have a different name, now they can
That
find it.
makes sense. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to accept the board minutes for the October 19, 2015 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A motion to accept the treasurer's report for October 2015?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A motion to accept the extra classroom activity fund report for October 2015?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Did he say so?
Aye. He seconded. Okay, we have the standard workday. Resolved that the Yorktown Central School District hereby establishes the following as standard workdays for elected and appointed officials, and will report the following day's work to New York State and local employees' retirement system based upon the time record systems of activities maintained and submitted by those officials to the clerk of this body.
So moved.
Discussion?
All those in-
Is that just something we have to do every year?
Yeah, it's a
I should
legal
know that after
requirement.
5 years, shouldn't I? But
Yeah.
it just seems odd that we do.
Normally it's
comes up
Pete who
once a year.
asks that, so it's good that you did.
Good. Not that I can fill
Exactly.
Pete's shoes, but
Who? Nobody can fill Pete's shoes. Who? Wait a minute, where am I up to? Okay, we're up to special ed. Approval of placements. A motion to arrange the following special ed placements as of November 23rd, 2015.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Contract for out-of-district placement. A motion to approve the contract between the Perkins School for the Blind and the Yorktown Central School District for the placement of an out-of-district student as mandated by an IEP for the fiscal year July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? To contracts, a motion to approve a contract between Listening Partners, Inc. and Yorktown Central School District for the provision of related services as mandated by an IEP for the fiscal year July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. The contract is not to exceed $8,000. And a motion to approve a contract before the Yorktown Central School District and Action Physical Therapy for physical therapy services for an out-of-district student for, you got a spelling error, for this 2015-16 school year, contract not to exceed $8,000.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Even they spelled four wrong.
There's a couple there, yes.
It's a space error. Give her a break. Put the space in the wrong place.
Jackie pointed it out, I was just reiterating it.
No one made a big deal about it until you read it.
They did at home.
A motion to accept the following as surplus and approve the disposal. It is a DYNA Vox.
Dynavox.
Dynavox.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a change order, a motion to approve change order number 1 for clean air quality. It's my favorite kind, it's a deduct.
It is.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Good job,
Opposed?
Jax.
Rental agreement. Motion to approve the attached amendment number 3 to the rental contract with Oxygen Volleyball for space at French Hill, and a motion to attach amendment number 7 to the rental contract with the YAC for space at French Hill.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And this is just my favorite. Tax cert refund. A motion to approve the following tax certiorari resolution. By order of the Supreme Court of the State of New York, held in and for the County of Westchester on the 21st day of October 2015, a school tax refund is due Michael Salation, is that his name? In the amount of $19,764.48 for the tax years 2010 through 2015.
So moved.
Discussion. Tom, what are we up to this year?
This year, we're close to 100,000. In the last 6 years, we're approaching 3 million.
And what do we got left in the pike?
We, every time we think we're about at the end.
Don't say anymore.
I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000, because we're still waiting on the big one, which
Okay.
is over at Strang Boulevard,
Okay,
and that's the biggest one. So.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following donations. Mohansick, $11,000 from the Mohansick PTA for the new kindergarten playground equipment. From Mohansick, $600 from the Mohansick PTA to fund an author visit. For YHS, $1,400 from the Huskers for varsity baseball spring training. And for the Carol Jacobson Fund, $966 in additional donations.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much for the gracious donations. We are up to board comments. Blacked out. Anthony? I don't know. Board comment.
Yay. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. Good luck.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Christine?
Again, welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Karen?
Cheryl, I look very much forward to working with you. I've worked with you a lot over the years with the PTA, and I know what a hard worker you are. I think the trickiest thing is going to be able to follow Jackie's mind or follow how she reads, because it's faster than the mouth can actually
Don't worry,
pronounce.
I'll interpret.
You will interpret. Thank you, Tom. Valuable part of the team. But welcome, and we are all here for you with your questions, and don't worry, I will talk with you tomorrow. And
That's great.
as you lay
Thank
in bed
you.
tonight and you think, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
No.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you for stepping up and for becoming part of the team. I think it's going to be a good experience for all of us.
Great, thank you. I look forward to it.
I'd like to say welcome to the new Manhattan College Jasper alumni to the team. This is the Jasper side of the table.
I don't know about this. Don't be wearing like your clothes or
No, we're gonna start wearing
I just
hats.
took them off when I came over here to put this on, so. Well, you know what? I know we wear your Manhattan clothes. We're Huskers clothes here.
Welcome and good luck.
Well, you're a new board member, so you get to join at board comment. Whatever, you don't have to, you can say no comment.
We got a Fordham side going on.
Look, no rival, ladies and gentlemen.
That Bronx rivalry. Thank you for the opportunity for being in this seat right now. I really look forward to being a part of this. I've thought about it over the past few years, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity right now. It works out perfectly with my schedule and where my kids are at right now, and I'm able to commit more time. And you know, I have to say, I love what I do. I say it all the time. This is my favorite job, and if I could ever pick one myself, this would be it, what I do within the schools and the PTAs. So I'm happy to take on a new challenge. It's what I've been looking for, and I'm thrilled that this worked out for me. So I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Terrific.
Sharon.
Yeah, welcome.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so happy, and we will make sure you get acclimated, not just like throwing you in there. You'll actually get really acclimated. We'll set up a schedule for you.
We forgot to ask her which committee she wants to chair. Which one would that be?
We don't throw you to the wolves like that. We're not that bad. We'll wait till the next meeting. But welcome. So, and then everybody here, I'd wish them a happy Thanksgiving. Ralph,
Thank you.
Florence,
Happy
Tom,
Thanksgiving.
anything you want to add in?
Happy Thanksgiving. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. So, public comment, anybody wishing to speak? Okay. Come a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good night, everyone. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.